Good evening. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program, where you get to meet inspiring women-owned businesses from across the country. And now, for your host, Kimberly McLemore.
All right. Good evening, everyone. We have had a crazy night. All the technical difficulties you could possibly imagine has happened, but guess what? We are on. Welcome to WSBI, your resource for success podcast program. I'm your host, Kimberly McLemore, and with us, we have another phenomenal show for you. I have a great guest, and I was not going to allow her not to be on here tonight. And we have with us Jaymie Bowles, aka Jam. She is the owner of WJMS Radio LLC, Radio ReImagined. Jams was born and raised in Brockton, Massachusetts. She received her BA in Communications in 2008 from Arcadia University and a certification in broadcasting from the Connecticut School of Broadcasting in 2012. She has hosted various talk shows, including On Air with Jams at Arcadia University, WurdUp on 900 AM WURD, and SoundOff on PhillyHotRadio.com. Now she owns her own internet radio station, WJMS Radio, which has reached over 98,000 listeners, both locally and internationally. WJMS Radio was named Small Business of the Year by Women in Media in 2016 and continues to grow every day. Jaymie still hosts 2 shows weekly and 1 video blog on the station while running the day-to-day operations of her platform. Without further ado, let's all welcome my wonderful guest, Miss Jaymie Bowles.
Hello. How are you?
Like I said, it's been one of those nights. This whole evening from the time I walked the door. I'm actually on travel myself, so I'm not even in the DC area. I'm up here in New York, and it took me 2 or 3 hours just to get the internet. So I've been rigging things all night. And then once we get you on, right now, I got you on. Then it wants to act up. So anyway,
of course.
So I am so glad to have you on. So welcome, Jaymie. Tell the listeners a little bit more about yourself besides what I've already read. You have a phenomenal background. I cannot wait to dive into this.
Thank you. So a little bit about myself. I don't even know where to start. Honestly, I am somebody who's been in love with music since I was a very small child. I used to make little mixtapes off the radio. I'm dating myself now at this point, but I used to make little mixtapes off the radio for all the songs that I liked, and I would play them and I would add different songs and all that kind of stuff. And I went to school as an art major, and I kind of realized that art wasn't for me. Excuse me. Really what happened was I went into the college with the intention of being an art major because I wanted to be an architect, realized how much I absolutely hate math, and realized how big a part of being an architect math is. So it was like, okay, that's not going to work. And then, I went through a phase of my life where I was undecided at college, trying to figure out kind of what I wanted to do. Mm-hmm. And I ended up just sort of stumbling into the Arcadia Radio Club. And I remember being that time when I was a kid making those mixtapes off the radio. And I said to myself, yeah, you know what? Like, you do kind of like being a DJ and just putting music together. So, like, why not just have a show on the station, on the radio station on the campus? Whatever. It's like something to do, because Arcadia was a very small, quiet campus. So I'm like, it gives me something to do. Mm-hmm. So I did that, and kind of one of those moments where, like, as soon as you sit down in the space, you kind of realize, like, oh, yeah, this is it. It was like something that just sort of clicked for me, and I was like, oh, wow, this feels good. I kind of like this, and I ended up changing my major to communications, and with a focus on, broadcasting and stuff like that. And I got an internship at Wired 96.5 down in Philly, it's not there anymore, actually. I think they switched their whole entire everything. I think they're like 92.5 amp radio or something. But at the time, they were a big top 40, like one of the more popular stations in Philly. And I remember walking in there, and I was like, I had like 20 credits, 2 jobs, and an internship. So it was like I was doing the overnight internship thing because it was that was the day I had. And the first night I went to that internship, one of the hosts that was on air that night, Ricky Rain, he actually brought me in the studio. He was like, "You're our new intern." He was like, "Come on in, I'm going to put you on air." And I was like, whoa, wait, like this is my first night. Like, I don't know anything. And I remember just sitting there in the studio with him being on air, and somehow the conversation turned to relationships. Now, mind you, I'm like 19, maybe 18, 19, 20 at the most. And people are calling up to the radio station to ask me relationship questions. And I'm like, first of all, I'm single. So
Right.
second of all, I'm 19, 20. Like, what do I really know? I just remember like that feeling of belonging, that feeling of stumbling upon something that you really like to do and something that feels right for you. And for anybody out there who's listening, who is walking in their purpose and who is sort of doing that thing that they know that they're here to do, that feeling that I'm talking about when it clicks for you and you're like, yeah, this is it. Like I've stumbled upon where I'm supposed to be and what I'm supposed to be doing. And from that internship sparked a ton of other things and a ton of other opportunities. I don't want to take up all the time talking about, the past and stuff like that. I want to talk about all the current stuff that's going on, but suffice it to say, 96.5 started me off, and then 900 AM WURD were the folks that truly gave me my first microphone. I had an internship with them right after graduating from Connecticut School of Broadcasting, and within 2 months of that internship, I had my own show on the station on the weekend, which was big. It's the only all-black talk radio station in Pennsylvania, which was amazing at the time. And I was in charge of bringing in the younger demographic to the radio station. And I loved it. And it's actually funny because people are like, I'm going to save this. I'll save that for later because I have a feeling you're going to ask that question later. So I'm going to save that for later. But that being said, I kind of developed like this love for talk radio that I didn't know I had. I didn't want to do talk radio before. I was all about music. And then I kind of realized like, I actually like doing talk radio. Like, this is actually kind of cool. So the work that I did with 900 AM really kind of set the stage for the rest of the work that I'm doing now, because I still currently am in that role of giving a voice to the youth and giving a voice to the younger demographic, and really putting a platform together for, I want to say the millennial generation, but I don't consider myself a millennial.
Right. But you look like you could be one of those little millennials.
I'm not. I promise you, I'm older than I look, I swear. I young face, as they say about us folks. But no, like, I like to give a platform to the underdog and to the folks that don't get a voice, because mainstream media tends to not focus on the positive things that are happening in and around the community, but more so on the negative things that are happening. So I try to spotlight those things that, like, hey, just in case you didn't know, this is happening right here. You know what I mean? So I kind of try to give the spotlight to the underdog and really give them an opportunity to talk about what they're doing, and give them the opportunity to shine that mainstream media doesn't seem to really give them. So yeah, I don't know if that answers your question.
Yeah, it answered my question and then some. The thing I was listening to you talk about is like, I know you say you didn't want to focus on just the past, but without that past, you wouldn't be here today. So that's the beauty about always talking about and going back a few steps just to realize where you started and where you're at. And like you said, one person, gave you an opportunity to help you blossom. But when you start to realize who you are and what you are and what really stands out, I think it's great. And you had that moment very early in life. And sometimes it takes us forever to figure that out. And even if we see it, we have a tendency to just keep walking away from it because it's not the typical type of business or profession for a woman to have. I'm sure in that time frame, that was probably one of the things. And I'm sure I would love to know, what was your family thinking when you decided to change your major?
They were fine with it. And just to go back real quick, I only say I don't want to focus on the past because I get super long-winded when it comes to telling my story, because I just feel I'm like, everything relates and it's all important. And I'm like, you've got to find a way to cut this down, girl. Like, nobody wants to hear all that. So that's the only reason why I say that. I'm trying to keep myself from going off the deep end in my long story. But how did my family feel about me changing majors? They were fine. I have always been a good student. That's always been something that my parents kind of instilled in me, this work first, play later type of, attitude about life. Like, get the work done first so you can play as hard as you want, because at the end of the day, your work's done. So, when I told them that I was going to change my major, and when they told them that I was going to be undecided for a little while, I mean, I'm sure they had the original, the normal parent reaction, like, well,
right.
We pay them for this. So how long are you thinking you're going to find yourself? Like, how long till this is over? But it honestly, it didn't take me a long time. When I say I was undecided, I wasn't undecided for like a year. It was undecided for maybe a month or so,
Mhm.
before like I decided to switch over to communications, because I knew in college, when you're taking a certain amount of courses and stuff like that, if you're trying to do this thing in 4 years, the longer you wait being undecided, the longer it's going to take for you to finish, because you're not taking classes towards that major.
Right.
So I didn't want to waste a whole lot of time. So when I told him I was switching to communications, it's actually pretty funny, because I told my dad that I had a show on the college campus, and he told me that he too was a radio personality in college and stuff, and
Well, I'll be darned.
I had zero idea that that was something that him and I even had in common. Like I never knew until I started doing that at my college.
Mhm.
So naturally, when I changed my major to do this regularly, like it'd be a full-time communications major, I want to say he was all on board for it, because he's like, I did it too, you know what I mean? So he was
Right.
on board. There was never any doubt with my parents that I wasn't going to finish my college education, or that, I wasn't going to figure out what I'm doing with my life. Like I
Mhm.
said, they raised me the right way, and they put a very good head on my shoulders. So I knew I wasn't going to be undecided for a long time, and I think they knew the same thing. So
Well, that's a blessing, because for most kids, it's like,
yeah.
wait a minute, no, you're going to go do this, and then you can go do that. But I think
Yeah.
the funnier part about it is that here, this is something that your father has done, and
Yeah.
then all this time, you were never told that. You guys never had the opportunity to share that conversation. But I could imagine being sitting in the room, and then here it is, you did have that conversation, and the look on your face and the look on his face is like, oh my gosh, my baby's following in my footsteps, per
Yeah.
se, right? So
Yeah.
I think that is actually pretty cool to hear that story. So tell me a little bit though about the challenges, because we all know with the way the technology has changed, things have become easier, but also we're in a playing field. And being that I'm, it's always great to talk to someone who's a fellow podcaster, or a radio show host and has their own station. Recently, I collaborate with another individual. We have a network now and have our station, and it's just been not a challenge, but I have definitely learned a lot in the short period of time that we've been doing this. So talk about a little bit of the challenges that you faced throughout the years, stepping out from being with a station that has basically had everything there for you, and then now you're on your own. How does that all come about for you?
So, I mean, to start at the beginning, obviously beginning a radio station and starting a radio station is pretty difficult. It's not an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of creativity. Like, you got to come up with a name, you got to come up with a logo,
Yeah.
you have to come up with a niche. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, you can't just be a run of the mill radio station. You got to have something that sets you apart. You have to come up with the server that you're going to use. You need the music, you need the content. There's a lot that goes into creating a radio station. So,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when I got the phone call from the gentleman who offered me the opportunity, it hadn't even occurred to me that that was something I wanted to do, which is funny, because I never wanted to have a radio station. Like, being 100% honest with you guys, that was never in my mind. Like, my mind was always set on, like, I just want to have a Sirius XM radio show. And that was kind of my ceiling, like, I hadn't thought higher than that. And then when he called me and he's like, would you be interested in having your own radio station? I was like, oh, that does make sense, like, to be the next step. And I was like, yeah,
Right.
yeah, so it had never even occurred to me to have a radio station. So,
Mm-hmm.
when I say wet behind the ears, I was totally wet behind the ears. All I had was my, I guess, understanding of what I had been doing thus far, but I didn't have any idea of like how to run the back office of things, but I jumped in feet first and said, yeah, let's do it.
Mm-hmm.
So what I will say about challenges that I've come into, just, and you can probably speak to it as well, is just the technology. While it's great, it is also very, very aggravating, for
Right.
lack of a better term. And I say that because podcasting, internet radio, internet broadcasting in general is a very rapidly like merging and evolving, like, just platform. And unfortunately, the technology that we're using is not sort of upgrading and updating as fast as we are. So we're
Right.
constantly using antiquated technology and things to get across the things that we need to do, because stuff just hasn't been invented yet. So
Mm-hmm.
we're really reinventing the wheel in some senses, because the technology just isn't there yet. And in terms of running a radio station, having a show, doing all of this stuff, it's trial by fire, literally. Something goes wrong, just as well as I do. Something goes wrong and you're just sitting here like, I'm gonna push these buttons
Buttons,
and
right.
we're gonna figure this out. That's all you can do. It's trial by fire. There's
Exactly.
no guidebook or handbook for this. So I will say challenges that I've come into is learning everything, because it's like nobody's here like, hey, just do it this way. Like no one's here to teach you how to do it. You literally are like, what's this technology? Let me see if I can integrate this into what I'm doing and make it so I can work smarter, not harder. And a lot of times it works and a lot of times it doesn't.
Hmm.
But the technology is a blessing and a curse for sure.
Yep,
Um,
absolutely.
and I
Hmm.
will also say, for me, just in terms of my own personal journey with this radio station, I have had a million thousand ups and downs. It has been a roller coaster ride for this radio station, because I've gone from, you know, having a show on somebody else's platform to having my own platform under somebody's umbrella, to then having to sever that umbrella altogether and be my own identity. And then establishing that identity and finding another new piece of technology that I had to implement, which then meant shutting down, or not shutting down, but totally rebranding everything and starting all
Yep.
over again. So it's been like, in this day and age, it's probably WJMS has probably had 4 to 5 different faces at this stage of the game, because
Wow.
it's constantly changing, it's constantly evolving, it's constantly merging into new things, and challenging wise is just that stress and the anxiety of rebranding your entire business. You
Hmm.
work so hard to build a brand around something, and and I can laugh at this right now. It aggravates me while I'm sitting here, but even this sign right here is not right.
Right. Oh.
you know, we've rebranded since this. Like we
Wow.
were originally on Tune In for a while, and
Okay.
we've rebranded again. Now we're on Live 365, and that was a decision that I just had to make like mid last year,
Hmm.
because as licensing for music and stuff like that in podcasts and on radio is hard to come by, and there's
Yep.
not a lot of platforms that offer that. And when I was on TuneIn and when I was on Sam, Spatial and stuff like that,
Hmm.
they wouldn't, or they didn't have that capability to license you through ASCAP, BMI, and Sound Exchange, which are the big royalty companies in terms of
Wow.
playing music. Live
Okay.
365 reemerged with that capability. And
Hmm.
for my radio station to be legitimate, I was like, I got to make the transition. Like I don't have a choice. So I had a forced rebranding because I had to be compliant. So it's like things like that happen, and they totally upend everything, and you just got to start over and put the puzzle back together again. You know what I mean? So those are the kinds of challenges that I've run into in terms of just running everything and being the only here at WJMS. So it's been a process, but I wouldn't trade it for the world. It's been a learning experience, and I am night and day from when I started to where I am today, to the point where I can talk somebody through, one of my
Hmm.
hosts, through their technical issues on the phone. Like, did you try this, and this? Okay, do this. All right, turn that off and reset. Like, it's great. I never thought I would see the day that I could, do that. It didn't seem
Right.
possible to me when I first started. So,
Yeah, I agree with you. The technology itself, and like I said, all the different platforms, and I
yeah.
know it's like it's to me, it's very different to some degree versus podcasting versus actually doing the internet radio piece, right? Because there's so many. Like I said, all the legality part of it and what you can and cannot do, and
Yeah.
that's a big part of what we're learning now as a network. And it's one thing to have the station, it's one thing to have the host, and then it's like, oh, you can't just have one engineer. So now we've got several engineers. There's so many
Yep.
pieces that are coming to this, to the table. And that's what we're finding is that, I guess, I don't look at it so much as a challenge as much as that, like you say, it can be a little frustrating because you're trying to learn all the little pieces and steps to it, but it also makes sense in order to make your show what it is. But I think, like you're talking, having to go from brand to brand to ensure that you're meeting the certain requirements you need to
Yep.
meet in order to be, who you are. That part right there would probably make most people just jump off the edge and say, I'm not doing this, or I'm going to go backwards,
Yes.
right? Because it is a lot of work. And to have the knowledge you have, I think it's phenomenal in what you're doing. So talk to me though a little bit about, I mean, I know that probably your greatest success is, like you said, is going from one moment of having to be on somebody else's platform, and now you literally are who you are. You're by yourself. You have your brand. Now, I guess when you're with your shows now, you have a lot of music and everything. Now, do you have like a lot of different shows that come on within your station? How do you actually run your program as far as WGMS is stood up?
So we have a very large music server, which is all my music. Like I said, music buff. So just amassed a ridiculous amount of music in my years on this planet.
Mhm.
So the entire server is uploaded, and I have playlists that play all throughout the day. So we have music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, with different playlists that play at different times a day. Like you got your R&B at night, you got
Mhm.
your top 40 in the morning to get you through your commute, stuff like that. You got your, old school for lunchtime. Um, but in between the music that plays around the clock, I have about 10 different shows that air at all different times of the day on different days of the week and from different regions of the country. So I've got a gentleman up in Canada who hosts a show with a gentleman in Los Angeles. They do it together at the same time. It's like
Mhm.
one of them is at 9 a.m. and one of them is at 5 a.m., but they come together and have a show. I've got ladies down in Florida who does a show. There's folks in Brooklyn. I'm doing a show here. I've got people in Pennsylvania. My host for my Wednesday shows in Pennsylvania. So the one good thing, or not one good thing, but the good thing about the radio station is that we are internet, so we are
Right.
everywhere. Which
Absolutely.
means that as long as you have your computer and your software, you can broadcast from wherever you want and from wherever you are. So that's one of the things that's great, is it's really breaking down the boundaries of terrestrial radio, because at certain points you lose certain stations with terrestrial radio, whereas
Right.
with
Right.
WJMS you can listen on the go, on your app, on your radio, on your computer, whatever you want, anywhere in the world, basically, literally. That's why it's international, from wherever you are at any time of the day. But structure wise, I put together, programming and stuff like that to really have the conversations that we need to be having, but have them on a level that people can understand. Because a lot of times you sit and you watch CNN, or you sit and you watch the news, and you're like, especially the younger generation, they're watching it and they're like, we have no idea what this means, we don't care, what, this doesn't affect me. Like, but they really have no idea that it does affect you. Like, you
Right.
have to pay attention, because you may think this doesn't affect you, but it's going to affect things that you need to do, things that you're going to do, and things like that. So what I try to do with my programming and with my content is to really have hosts and bring hosts to the air who can have those conversations, but have them on a level that's relatable to everybody. So we market to ages literally from 18 to 40. That's our market share, because we literally are a platform that anybody can listen to and take something away from. You can
Mhm.
be on the young side of the spectrum, or you can be way even past our older end of the spectrum, and still understand what we're talking about, still have, input on things, and still, find relevance in what we're talking about. So that's kind of how I structure the programming, and how I, put things together for the station to set it apart.
Right. And I like that. And you're right. The thing that's the beauty about being internet is that you can reach the masses.
Yep.
The one thing about being local, it's local. I mean,
Yep.
and it's great, but at the end of the day, like you said, the way things are today, and with the way the technology, and people want to hear everything. They want that instant gratification, right?
Yep.
So internet radio, podcasting, it all has come to that forefront, and it's getting larger year after year. But I think the big difference is the content and the value that people bring to the station is what makes them successful. And obviously you have definitely done that, being that you have 98,000 listeners. That is phenomenal, and you've built this on your own, and that takes a lot. And then especially when you're trying to go, you had to go from one place to the next, like you said, in the middle of the year, you're making a decision to have to change your platform. And
Yep.
we all worry about, well, are we going to lose those listeners? Are they going to be willing to make that jump? And really, yeah, because they love who you are and they love what you're doing. But give me a tip. If you had somebody who decided they wanted to come in this business, and first of all, the education side, what would you share with those who maybe decide, what, I want to get into this? And what ideas and resources would you think would be best for them to take in order to get into this type of platform in this business?
In terms of education and resources, there's a lot of different websites. I would say the first thing they need to do is find a mentor, find somebody who, like myself, or you even,
Mhm.
somebody who is in the industry already and who has gone through a lot of these things, because, we are sort of pioneers, if you will, for this type of thing. So we've kind of led the way on a lot of different things. We know some things that we can probably save people a lot of aggravation trying to figure out, like, how do I find a server? How do I find, X, Y, and Z, and so on and so forth. So my first bit of advice would be to find a mentor, somebody that you trust, somebody that you can talk to, that you can bounce ideas off of, who can, put some value into what you're doing and help you get to the next step, basically. From there, in terms of education and resources online, of course, you can look up just about anything in terms of, you know, what you're trying to do. There's a website I'm trying to think on the fly. I think it's called, I want to say radio.co.co. And I subscribe to their newsletter. They have like tips and like pro tips and stuff like that they put out almost daily. for how to run a radio station, how to run a podcast, stuff like that, how to make money off podcasts and radio stations. So it's just doing the research, like don't jump into this without doing the research, but
That's right.
also make sure you have people on your team. You need a team. Like, yes, you can run it by yourself, but you need people in your corner because like you said earlier, with the whole rebranding and wanting to jump off the cliff, they're the ones holding your reins. So if you don't have a team behind you holding your reins, then when you want to jump off the cliff, you go, and that's it. If you have a team behind you, the team can reinforce for you sometimes when you're having a low point, because there will be many,
Right.
Why you're doing this. They'll say, listen, you got this, this is like, why are you upset about this? Like, this is like, they'll talk you off the cliff. And I have to take a minute to shout out my team. They know who they are, who are in my corner, that constantly talk me off the cliff when I'm like, y'all, been a day. Like every rebranding I go through, I'd be like, y'all, I'm gonna need the team to assemble Autobots. Let's go. We got to put it together because
Right.
it's like,
Right.
you know what I mean? But the team is important because the team is who keeps you motivated. They're the ones that keep you from forgetting why you're doing this in the first place. And the last bit of advice I would give is to feel it. Feel the highs and feel the lows. This is not going to be a roller coaster that's fun. I mean, it'll be fun, but it's going to be up and it's going to be down. And when it's down, it's really down. But when it goes up, it goes up, and it feels good. And there'll be times that you're like, you feel like you're on top of the world and there's nothing that anyone can say to you to bring you down from there. And then there'll be times where you're like, why am I even bothering?
Right.
Like, so
I think we had that little, I had that little bit of moment earlier. Then I'm like, okay, what is really going on? Right. It's like,
what is
everything.
My purpose? Yeah. So my advice to you is to feel it, enjoy the ride, because this is all, every up and every down is part of your story later on. And when somebody sits down in an interview like this and says, tell us about some of the struggles and the challenges you went through, you're going to be able to talk about it. And you're going to look back and you're going to smile and be like, yeah, I remember when I thought that was going to break me. And you didn't, so right. Feel it, feel the journey, love the journey, because it's part Absolutely. Of it. That's part of what makes it exciting.
That's right. And you're right. And that's the thing that I love about doing this podcast and especially this show, because I love for people to be able to come on and see that we're human, and that these are the things that we've gone through. And this is why we are who we are. And it's okay. Because like you said, everybody's going to have those ups and downs, but it's that journey that makes you who you are. And why you're doing what you're doing. You have a purpose. And like you said, when you had the opportunity to figure it out at such a young and quick age, for some people it takes longer, but when you realize that you are here for a reason, everything is worth all that struggle, all the happiness, all the tears, whatever you're going through.
Yeah.
It's definitely, one of those moments. And it was so funny because I was talking to my partner earlier today. I was like, do I have to think for everybody? What is the thing here? What was the deal? People can't think for. She just started laughing at me. She's like, I know, but it's gonna be okay. She's always my "it's gonna be okay" moment,
That's the person in your corner. She's the person in your corner.
Absolutely, love her to death, and and that's the world that we're in, and doing this type of work, that people would say, oh, that's just doing it for a living. No, this is doing it because we have a passion.
Yeah.
We believe in who we are and what we're doing. And then what you have done, like I said, I applaud you. And I just love it because, it's always great to talk to somebody else who has definitely gone through the real part of what it means to be on internet radio and podcasting. Because there's a lot different than just saying, I'm going to do a Facebook Live today. It really is. There's those significant differences that people really don't understand what goes on in the background. But I do have a couple more questions. So tell us a little bit about what is currently going to be happening in the near future for you.
So in the near future, I am going to be premiering another show. So I'm working with Brooklyn Commons, and we have a collabo going on. So they've become sort of like my brick and mortar location, even though I don't have one right now, but it's nice to have that. If I need to bring a guest in or something like that, they've become that sort of resource for me, and I've become a resource for them in terms of a media outlet. So we've been partnering together, working on a couple of things, and we're bringing back Inside BKC for season 2. And we're revamping it a little bit and changing it up and adding some new characters in and stuff like that. So be on the lookout for that. I am having a pretty lofty goal to get at least one new show per month. My goal, one new show per month is the goal. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm working on it, but it's got to be quality show. I don't want just any old body
Right.
on air. Like I want a good quality show and somebody who cares about what they're doing. So I'm going to be pushing towards making that happen. What else? We're just going to continue to bring you, relevant information, good music, and stories of people in your neighborhood, in and around your community who are doing awesome things, who may or may not need your help, but definitely need your support at the very least. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things I can't necessarily reveal. Of
Oh, I
course.
get it. It's
Of course.
okay.
But, what I can say is we're going to continue to bring you guys amazing content, and we're going to continue to build our brand and to increase followers, increase listenership, and, continue to break down the borders, between, countries at this point, between
Mhm.
states, and between platforms. So that's the goal.
Well, I tell you what, like I say, you're doing a phenomenal job, and I'm so glad that you came on. So before we actually end our interview for tonight, why don't you tell everybody how they can get a hold of you and actually listen to your show, and if they, if you have, like I said, you're looking for future show people and maybe future guests, please,
Yes.
let us know how we can get a hold of you.
I am always looking for guests, always looking for guests. I'm actually booking for SoundOff as we speak. So my show SoundOff airs Saturdays at 12. It's a spotlight for entrepreneurs and business owners. It gives you an opportunity to talk about what you're doing, things you may have going on in the community, events coming up, stuff like that. It's your hour to shine, basically. So whatever you want to come and brag about, come to the show and brag about it. Every Saturday at 12 p.m. On Wednesday night at 9 p.m., I host a show live on Facebook and on the platform, of course. It's sort of about hip hop, but we've been a lot of current events lately because there's been some happenings going on. So,
Right.
but it's a really good show. I host it along with my my good friend Tommy, who's down in Philadelphia. That's every Wednesday night. But in general, if you want to get a hold of me or the radio station, we're at WJMS Radio on all your favorite social media: Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, Twitter. I'm Jaymie Jam on Facebook and Just Jams on Instagram. And yeah, you can tune in 24/7. We have an app. Well, we don't have an app. We had an app. But you could tune in by downloading Live 365 and adding us as a favorite. You can listen around the clock. Like I said, we have some really great music playing, and it's office friendly, so you don't have to worry about like, oh, what's she playing?
Good.
Right. So you can play the music in the
turn that off, right?
So bad. Yeah. But yeah, definitely reach out. I'm always looking for guests, and I'm really looking for hosts as well. So if you're somebody who is interested in hosting a show and you're passionate about radio and broadcasting, slide in my DMs. Let me know what's going on.
All right. Well, that's perfect. Well, we appreciate that. And do you have any last words that you would like to tell the listeners about and our viewers?
Just like and share the page. Liking and sharing the page goes a very long way for small businesses. Like it is ridiculously difficult to get people to like your page for some reason. So if you do nothing else, just like us on Facebook or Instagram, or share us with your friends and tell them to do the same. And I appreciate it.
All right. Well, we love it. And again, I thank you. And thank you again for being so patient with me tonight. And with
Listen,
all the
technology twins, we got this, girl. Like,
I know. But like I said, we have literally at least a good year trying to get this rocking and rolling. So
Yep.
I appreciate you, and you have been a phenomenal guest. And for everyone, please make sure that you reach out to Jaymie. Like she said, if you are interested, Jams has got it going on. She is phenomenal. I love the nickname Jams. Love it.
From my daddy. Came from my daddy.
All right. Well, Daddy
And
picked a
that's
good one. Love it. Love it.
This is actually a play on that. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, that name fits you. It's perfect. So, like you say, supporters. She's at WJMS Radio, Radio ReImagined. I mean, it's phenomenal. Like I said, to be able to talk to you, learn from you, as well as you're providing a platform for those who definitely may not have anywhere else to go, but also are being appreciated for the craft and the artistry that they are bringing, for all of us to listen to. So we do appreciate you, and we thank you again for coming on.
Thank you. This has been great. I appreciate it.
Well, it's my pleasure. And for everyone else. So Jaymie, I'm going to say goodbye to you, and I'm going to say a couple more things, but like I said, it's a pleasure, and we will talk soon. So we definitely got to connect and stay in touch. All right.
Yes, let's do. We please do.
All right. Well, thank you again, and have a good evening.
You too.
All right. For everyone else, as you've seen, we had Jaymie. Oh my goodness, Jaymie Bowles, who is, as we call JAMS, WJMS Radio LLC, with us this evening. That was just a phenomenal interview. Again, we do apologize for being on late this evening with all the technical difficulties through Be Like TV. It wasn't much we could do, but we wanted to make sure we definitely wanted to bring this on board this evening. I do want to talk a few minutes about if you would like to be a guest on the show. There's a few things you just need to do so that you can come on for 2019. The slots are filling up very quickly, so you want to make sure that you get a hold of me as soon as you can. The basic thing that we need to have in order for you to be a guest on my show is I need a short bio, a logo, and a professional pic of yourself, of course. That is important. You can also send this to KMM123McLemore@gmail.com. So short bio, logo, and a professional pic, because that's important to me. I always like to make sure that everyone that is on the show or has a professional pic done, so we know who you are and people can reach you in the right way. The other thing that I want to quickly talk about that before I actually sign off this evening is that we have a phenomenal event coming up here within the next week. Believe it or not, I can't believe February is literally right around the corner. Like tomorrow, I believe, is February, right? So I'm just like unbelievable that we have things going on. But you know, the month of February is all about Black history, and even though we know Black history should be discussed consistently every day, and every year, every month, we shouldn't have to worry about just doing it for 1 month, but we know February is a very special month. So we have a Black History celebration going on February 9th from 12 to 3, which is hosted by Dr. Larry White Sr., who is the owner of VIP Events Concierge. And we have some phenomenal speakers. It's going to be, the location, of course, is going to be in Annapolis, Maryland, at Mills Parole Elementary School. It's located at 1 George and Marion Phelps Lane in Annapolis, Maryland. And we have some phenomenal guest speakers. And our keynote speaker is going to be Dr. Essie McCoy. And then we have our other VIP speakers will be myself, Kimberly McLemore, Dr. Tashika Green, Dr. Valika Moore. We have author Ashley Little, and we have author Linda Array, and we have Dr. Marcy Ross as a part of our VIP speakers. If you are interested in coming out, it is a free event. If you would like to do any donations, just reach out to VIP Events Concierge at upcoming events, and you can donate. We're going to have some great other things going on with our children who will be doing some speaking, and we're also going to have roundtable discussion and so forth. So please come on out and support us on February the 9th between 12 and 3. We would love to have you. We think it's important that the community is always involved and understands that Black history is not about one day. It's about every day of our lives. So come on out and meet some significant other business owners and other entrepreneurs and network with them as well while you're there. This is what our events are all about. So again, I just wanted to bring that up. But like I said, we are here though every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Next week we'll be back at our regular time. And as you know, it is February. So February, I will be having some new faces coming on. So, and some new guests. One thing I will say, on February 14th, it is a holiday. And I've had many people tell me, look, no, don't need to be on Valentine's Day. So there will be no show on Valentine's Day, but look forward to some of the new people we'll be having on. Altavis Pelzer will be on. We'll do Lady K and Mr. T show. We have Wandra Kane on as well coming up in February. So like I said, we will see you next week, 7:00 p.m. on time. And hopefully we won't have any more technical difficulties. But until next time, you all have a wonderful evening. I thank you for your patience and good night.
Good night, everyone. We will be back next Thursday evening at 7 p.m. Follow us on Spreaker, www.spreaker.com/user/WSBI. View our new WSBI website anytime at www.wsbillc.com and on Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Instagram.